Hello, welcome today to our next part in spiritual hygiene, the mission to understand. If you have not watched the intro to this playlist, it is a couple of videos back and it has the label spiritual hygiene. I do suggest you go and watch that. You don't have to. This session, we're delving into the next part of the book. The first video that I did was just all about the introduction, the intention behind writing this book for the author Iyanla Vanzant. Now we're going to delve into the meat of why we are reading this book, why we are wanting to understand the importance of spiritual hygiene. And we're not just talking about spirituality. We could be talking about religion too. We could be talking about atheism, right? This is a way of living that allows you to experience it in the highest form, right? This is an option to help improve your daily lifestyle, your daily experience, and to be able to enjoy it. So many times we have been given such lavish lives. And when I say lavish, I don't mean an abundance of things, right? Or even abundance of people. I mean lavish in the fact that we're able to get up and dress ourselves. We're able to do our own, makeup, our own hair, prepare our own food. Many times we're able to get ourselves to and from where we need to be. Like we're able to be clean. We have running water, fresh air, things that we take for granted. We are living a lush, lavish life. When I say that, I do really mean that. But because we have issues, sometimes the issues overcrowd our ability to be able to enjoy just life, right? It doesn't have to be a life of a superstar or, a life where you are just like on top of the world. It could be an everyday life where you have a set routine that keeps you regulated, that keeps you stable and grounded, that keeps you focusing on the right things. It doesn't take a lot. Simplicity is life, but so many times issues crowd that out. And sometimes it does have a lot to do with, what we're talking about today, which is spiritual hygiene. And so in an effort to understand this and really understand the power like that we hold around our own experience, that's what this is about. And I know, I've done a lot of different things and none of it, I've done the routine of going to do this and that. And none of it really helped me because in a way I was expecting something or someone else to come and do the work, right? If we can just be real, but and I spent many years, even decades doing this to no avail until I understood that it's up to me. It's up to me to interpret my experience and to make that into what it is that I desire it to be. Nobody else is going to come and do that for me. And so through my experiences over the last maybe 5-6 years, my ideas, right, around what happiness is has significantly changed. And one of the things that has changed around it is that I no longer have to wait for someone else to make that a reality for me. Like I have the power and the ability to create that in the most simplest of terms. Even if I just close my eyes and go within, that is the most potent form of happiness, right? It does not lie outside of me in my abundance of things. It's all coming from within because you can have a very little and be enjoying life to the fullest. And I really do feel like the less you have, the less stressful life is. We don't understand. Everybody wants to have this lavish, expensive life, not understanding you have to pay for all of that stuff, right? You see people riding around in fancy cars and living in these big mansions. There is a cost for that. One of the greatest lessons that I've learned is simplicity is everything, right? I'm not really in a rush to have a lot of things. That doesn't give happiness. That doesn't give stability or strength. All of that comes from within. That is a byproduct, I feel like, of the efforts that we put in. But then there's still a huge part of that that doesn't really have a lot to do with those things. because those things can't make us happy. And so there's something about dealing with the inside that will get us there, right? That's what we're talking about today. And so the last video, we talked about the intro of her book, going into why she wrote it. And so if you'd like to know, you can go back and watch that video. This video, we're going to go into, the reason why we're reading this book, Spiritual Hygiene. We want to understand that. And so we're starting in level 1, which is all about healing. Under level 1, there is a few chapters where we'll go deep into breaking down that concept of healing. And then we have level 2 that talks about soul cleansing and detoxification. And then we go into level 3. And all of these levels have several chapters that will hit on several different significant points to help us understand these concepts. Level 3 talks about reclaiming the sacred self. And then the last level is the conclusion. And it's also an introduction to return to self. Okay. And so when we start the level 1, we're really talking about healing and how that has to do with everything going on the inside of us. And so if you have your book, I am on page 5, where it says level 1 and healing. So let's get started. She says, you are here because part of you remembers the truth. The light in you is still intact. The voice of the divine within you is still sacred. This is the part that I really love. She says, the soul in you is still willing. It is your soul that is guiding you towards a sacred return to the truth of your being. And this stage of the path of spiritual hygiene is healing. What that means is that you must be willing to give yourself permission to do things like to slow down, to stop the rat race, to listen to what's going on within you, within your body, within your mind, within your spirit, within your emotions, and to acknowledge that you are a temple, a living temple. And this is not the end of your struggle. This is just the beginning of your sovereignty. Whew, that just sends chills up my spine. This is not the end. Many times when we hit that point of struggle, an intense struggle, we think that life is coming to an end. No, baby, it's just beginning. It's a new season. This is introducing you to everything that you are not. It's bringing you into your sovereignty. So we will walk with clarity towards what you will encounter at this stage in your journey and what you will be asked to do along the way. So we begin with the definition of healing. What does that mean? What does it entail? And how can it offer benefits? What is the potential results that can occur when we commit to engaging in a healing process? And that's what this is. It's a healing process. It goes in stages. And I think one of the first stages that I was led to, just to take a moment to detour, is to acknowledge that I'm hurting, right? It's to acknowledge that. Stop hiding it. Stop covering it up with things. It's okay to acknowledge it. That's the first step. At least that was the first step in my process. And then the healing can begin. And then we can move to the next part. I love how she has broken this down. And really, as we will see, she's going to break down this process like really nicely. I love it. For the purpose of spiritual hygiene, what we're going to describe as healing is remembering what was forgotten, restoring what was lost, and realigning what was distorted within the sanctuary of your own being. It is a return to wholeness in which your mind, your heart, your soul expresses naturally and freely through your physical body. True healing is not the act of erasing wounds or pretending that your pain does not exist. Healing in this context, when we're talking about spiritual hygiene, is the holy work of becoming aware of what it is that you are carrying, honoring its impact and releasing what no longer serves your divine unfolding. It is the clearing of energetic residue from inherited pain, from internalized shame, and from emotional clutter. It is learning to hear your own soul again. And I'm hearing your own voice again through the noise of anger, of guilt, and shame. It is releasing the mask that you wear, the roles that you have played, and the defenses that you have engaged to keep yourself safe. Healing is not arriving anywhere. It's not a destination. It's a process. It is a rhythm that you live within, a sacred return to mental and emotional clarity, to your authentic presence, and to the truth of your soul. Healing is the soil in which spiritual hygiene begins. Oh, my goodness, my goodness. That was a bomb right there. You ever heard something that just was like, it just blew your mind? A bomb. That was a bomb. That's what healing is. Now, she talks about so many different aspects that was just ringing so loudly and so clearly about how this is all about returning to wholeness within ourselves, our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our emotions, so that we can express naturally and freely through our physical bodies. So many times we're being held back from expressing creatively, emotionally. Yes, emotionally. Anger is an emotion. It's an expression. It was an emotion that we were given. So yeah, it's okay to express anger. There is a such thing as righteous anger. That's okay. But because we are backed up, like I look at it in terms of like being constipated, we're backed up with all these other things like shame, internalized pain, internalized shame, right? Or emotional clutter, right? We're backed up. That doesn't allow us to naturally emote or express through our bodies. That's due to a lack of healing. It's due to healing that needs to take place. And it's not erasing the pain. That's not what healing is, right? She says that healing is not erasing pain or pretending that it doesn't exist. That's not healing. Healing is the work of becoming aware of what it is that you carry. All of the above, right? All of the above, anger, shame, guilt. It's being aware that you carry that. And not only that, honoring the impact that it has had because you've had to carry it. And then we can release that so that we can experience what was meant for us in this life. So we can have the experience that we came here to have. Now, let's talk about this. When we look at inherited pain, that's what we're talking about. Generational pain, pain that you didn't necessarily, we talk about karma, right? This is what this is bringing up for me. This is sometimes pain that we didn't necessarily earn. It was given to us. We talk about the fathers passing down this stuff that's not necessarily wanted to their children, and mothers passing down these things, right? Inherited pain is pain that you didn't necessarily earn, but was given. It was passed down to you. An example of that would be a broken home where the mother and the father was not present for whatever reason. Sometimes that can turn into something that we pass down, right? It's like, oh, I can't stand your mama. I can't stand your daddy. He's a fill it with whatever it is that he is, or whatever it is that you were told about your mom or your dad, if this is something that you can resonate with. Everything but a child of God, right? Sometimes that can become our disposition in life. And so we come to expect that that's what men are. They're a disappointment. They are not the idea, that we would like to have when it comes to a spouse. Vice versa. Sometimes the men grow up to look at the mother in a certain way or despise women because of all of the above, whatever was said or passed down, these attitudes and mindsets. That's what we call inherited pain. If we're not careful, we will pass that down, not understanding just because your stuff didn't work. That doesn't mean that your children can't have healthy, beautiful, fruitful, long-lasting relationships that are fulfilling. Just because yours didn't work doesn't mean that theirs can't. Matter of fact, because yours didn't work, you should be equipped to help them make theirs work. That's how that's supposed to go. But instead, sometimes it turns into inherited pain that we pass down to our kids. They didn't earn that, right? They didn't fail in that relationship. So why should they carry the burden of the failed relationship? That's what we mean by inherited pain. Or it could also be a certain way that we deal with our pain. Same situation, but maybe we turn to drugs, or maybe we turn to alcohol to kind of soothe our pain. Instead of dealing with it and working through it and processing it, we just sweep it under the rug. Instead, we go for a substance to help us just not think about it. What turns into an opportunity to process pain and heal actually becomes an addiction that we can sometimes even pass down. And so now we've set a particular example or lifestyle that has been handed down to those that are watching us or following us. Through our pain, we have passed down something that's not necessarily healthy, that will need healing at some point in time. And so unconsciously, right, we can definitely pass down pain, which causes someone else to inherit it, something that they didn't necessarily earn, right? They receive. And so that's what we mean when we talk about carrying or needing to clear this residue from inherited pain or internalized shame. Things that we were made to feel like we need to hide or cover up, or that we cannot feel good about. An example would be, what's a good example of this? Internalized shame. I don't know why this is coming up, but maybe you have someone who grew up in a very masculine home, very masculine energy. And you have a young man growing up in a masculine home who has very feminine qualities or tendencies, or that feel very comfortable in their own authentic self, which happens to be more feminine than masculine, being made to feel some type of way because that's who you are. And so you can only be told so many times until it becomes like, okay, I'm not accepted, so I need to hide this part of myself and pretend to align with what's expected of me, even though deep inside, everything is very opposite of what I'm showing the world or showing when I'm in this particular environment that expects me to be this way, right? And so not being accepted causes internalized shame. And so being aware of that, right, can help us to better understand our connections, especially with our kids, with our family, with our friends. Internalized shame causes us to hide parts of ourselves that we feel like won't be accepted. We don't feel safe to be open, to be honest about what we're thinking, about what we're feeling, about who we are. And there's a lot of that, right? Internalized shame. That's how that comes to be. There's some rejection that happens that causes us to shirk back and not want to be open and not want to be honest. And so we keep it to ourselves. We shut up into like a clam because we don't feel safe to be our authentic self. Internalized shame. There's hidden things there. This is the area of darkness because it's not safe to bring it into the light. And so we internalize that and we experience that internally to the point where no one even has to really point a finger anymore because we have internalized that so deep to where it starts to operate unconsciously. And that's so destructive. That's so destructive. Because what that looks like is you could literally be dying emotionally and look like you're thriving on the outside, but you're dying on the inside because there's this dissonance that is happening within you. You get to the point where you start to shame yourself. No one has to point the finger anymore because you've taken on that shaming within yourself to keep yourself suppressed, to keep yourself safe many times, right? But that's what we're talking about when we talk about the need for healing. And then emotional clutter, huge too. All this stuff that we never really take the time to sort through mentally. And it just builds and builds and builds till you just have this big cloud of confusion. This is kind of like what it felt like when I first began to really become aware. It felt like a big cloud. When I began to be aware of what was happening on the inside of me, it felt like a big cloud of confusion and clutter. It was almost unbearable. And I just describe it as a moment of just release. But there was a need to release it. There was an awareness that it was there, that it was painful, too painful for me to hold anymore. And it was just like, okay. I see my condition, that was the beginning of my healing, seeing my condition. And so these are the things that she's talking about. It's so, so heavy. And it's learning to hear that and acknowledge that and see that. And, in the same way, when we see a part of our body is wounded, like if you accidentally scrape your arm and then it starts bleeding, you don't just walk around and just let it continue bleeding. No, you go and you care for it. You go get some sanitizer and sanitize that spot and clean it and then cover it up so that it can heal. So it's kind of like that. It's learning how to hear what's happening within, to hear our soul, to hear our own voice, especially as it pertains to healing. And sometimes it will sound like anger. Sometimes it will sound like guilt. Sometimes it will sound like shame. But it's being open to hear that and being willing to clean it, like with that antiseptic, right? Being willing to clean it, being willing to then care for it and do what's needed to alleviate what's causing the pain, to alleviate the bleeding. It's releasing. She talked about releasing the masks that we wear and the roles that we play, right? Masks talk about hiding something. Roles also talk about hiding stuff as well. And this is all about defenses that we've engaged in to keep ourselves safe. And so there's just so much. Her definition of healing was very, very deep. It's on page 5. To achieve the healing process, you must first awaken to the need for healing. This means recognizing that the mind, your inner throne of thought, so that's what we're calling the mind. We call it our inner throne of thought. And it's interesting that she calls it a throne. Throne indicates power when we talk about a throne. And so at the same time, what she is saying, when she calls it the throne of thought, she's also recognizing the power of this thing that we're talking about. Power. There's power here within the thought. That's what she's saying. This means to recognize that the mind, your inner throne of thought, belief, and perception has been occupied by unexamined narratives, inherited fear, internalized judgment, and reactive survival patterns. It means becoming aware of mental noise that drowns out inner wisdom and self-talk that reinforces shame and the illusions that keep you stuck in a cycle of confusion and control. And not to fault the mind, because all the mind is trying to do is protect us. It's what it's supposed to do. We call it the ego. So we can't fault the mind. It's just doing what it is expected to do. And so it's not to be upset with ourselves or be upset with our thought processes or our mind, but more so to be aware of it. Because when we're aware of something, then we can take the control back from it. As long as we're unaware, things operating in the background without us even knowing what's happening, cycles, patterns, we have no control over that because we don't even know what's going on. We're in the dark about it, but it's being aware of it, acknowledging it, that gives us the power to take back what's rightfully ours, right? Which is the ability to steer forward in the direction that will be for our highest good, to bring us to a place where we're able to experience life enjoyably. This is what healing is about. And to release us from those cycles of control and confusion to our mind. Awakening to the need for healing is not about blaming yourself for your thoughts. It is about reclaiming your authority over them. The work you will encounter at the healing stage invites you to sit upon the throne of your mind. Take your power back. Take your throne back. It invites you to sit upon the throne of your mind, not as a ruler driven by fear, but as a steward of sacred clarity. You see clearly, right? You understand your weaknesses and your strengths. Therefore, you're able to choose the best case scenario that will help you be successful. It is here that you will begin the practice of observing, naming, gently cleansing. As you know, she said gently cleansing the mental debris that has clouded your vision and dulled your power. Healing does not begin when the path ends. It begins when the patterns are seen, acknowledged, and accepted. And not that you have to push it, right? She says gently cleansing. And so it's acknowledging this is a part of me that needs healing. I need to handle myself with care while I am caring for this part of me, not hating it. Ooh, I can't stand that part of me. That's what causes us to look at others with disdain, because there's a part of us that we've yet to accept. Not hating it, but gently cleansing it, right? Being willing to acknowledge it and accept it and see it, right? That's all we're called to do in this part. Only then can they be blessed for the safety, and they provide and release for things that will come in that are greater. Yeah, they're supposed to be providing safety and release. That's the purpose of this awareness of ourselves, awareness of the healing that's needed. And I don't care how, I'm going to say this many times during this book read, I don't care how safe or how provided, how much of a beautiful upbringing you've had. You may have been somebody that ate with silver spoons and forks, and you didn't have to work, or you didn't have to really suffer anything. I don't care how pristine your upbringing or your past has been. There is healing needed. Okay. I don't care how much you have lived, maybe for the last 10, 20 years, you feel like you've lived this holy, spotless life. There is a need for healing until the day that we cease to exist in these fleshly temples. Some might call them fluid bags. When we look at it, scientifically, that's all it is. We're bags full of fluid and a couple of bones. Until we move on from this state of being, there will be a need for healing, physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. The fact that we are existing, there is a need for healing, okay? For care, basically, is what I'm saying. There's a need for self-care, okay? So in this level, we're calling this level 1, we'll be introducing a couple of different concepts, and she calls them the 4 pillars of awakening. that's needed for healing. And we did discuss these in the intro. We talked about these. The first one is self-awareness, right? We talked about that, what we are thinking, what we are feeling, and knowing that. Self-awareness. I know what I'm thinking. I'm not just on this mental path, just not even aware of my own thoughts, right? I know when I'm thinking something crazy, it's like, what? Where did that come from? Right? It doesn't just go unchecked. I'm aware. And I know sometimes with what I'm thinking and how it causes certain feelings within me. And one of my things is music. I am a lover of music, and music just, it opens me up so cleanly. And sometimes I know if I'm unhealed, if when I'm listening to a song, how it shakes up something that is uncomfortable within me, or it causes me to feel hurt and immediately brings a memory. For me, music is like a window. It's windows of time. When I listen to songs, I'm immediately transported back to a specific time and place many times with that song. And if it transports me back to a time that is unenjoyable and that automatically causes me to kind of like clench up and be like, ew, or it makes me feel mad or angry or sad or frustrated, right? I know that is, for me, is pointing to a place where I need to look at, because there's some healing needed there. There may be some healing with that connection that needs to be done. There may be some healing with my past, coming to a resolution within myself. Sometimes it doesn't necessitate an apology, but it's a me needing to come to a resolution within myself that it's okay, right? There is life after that. Maybe that was something that I didn't examine and then I just moved on. Well, let's go back and examine that. What happened there? What part did I play in that? Right? And so sometimes music for me is very powerful. It's a very powerful tool that sparks my awareness like that. But going back to the first concept is self-awareness. What am I thinking and feeling? What am I thinking and feeling? Not to bring up shame about it. That's not what this is about. Okay. But being aware of it. The second pillar is self-honesty. Am I telling myself the truth? Am I being honest with myself, right? Or am I trying to really move away from something and hide from something that may in some way have caused pain or is currently causing pain? And I'm trying to like shun that experience or that part of myself so that I don't have to feel the pain. Am I being honest with myself? Why? It's okay to ask ourselves why. Why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? Like being honest with ourselves. The third one is energetic responsibility. And this is asking, what am I allowing to occupy my mental and emotional fields? This is like the self accountability, right? And for me, this is huge. And for me, this reminds me a lot of when we set boundaries. We say we set boundaries, but then we don't really set boundaries, right? It's like, I'm trying to remember, there's a meme online, I think on YouTube. And the meme was, the lady was mad. She was like, don't you ever, 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 ever come back to my place again. Bye, right? But then it showed the door. There was a Cheeto that she slid in the door to lock the door. It's like, a Cheeto, come on, right? And it was funny because it showed the dissonance between what she was saying and her intentions. Like, you're saying leave, but you ain't really making nobody leave, not by putting a Cheeto in the little slot in the door to lock somebody out. You saying one thing, but your actions is saying something different. And so it's like energetic integrity within ourselves is really not only being honest with ourselves, but also holding ourselves accountable, right? To the boundaries that we set, to the boundaries that we say we want to set, to the boundaries that need to be set in order for us to experience, enjoy, or believe the way that we want to. And not just with others. I gave an example of others and connections, relationships, but this is also with ourselves too. Don't get up every day and be looking at yourself crazy, right? And you constantly doing the thing that's causing you to look at yourself crazy. If you're going to do the thing, then you're going to have to be happy with the results and like be really honest with yourself, And so energetic integrity, or energetic responsibility is what she's calling it. What am I allowing to occupy my mental and emotional field? Because everything starts here. There was a point in time in my life where I was so serious. Like about changing my mindset. I was reading books. I was actively engaging. I had to put up stickies all over my room, around my bed, reminding me to keep my mind and keep me focused on what I wanted to focus on at that point in time. At this point in time, it was scripture, right? Because that's what was keeping my mind stayed on the thing that I needed to focus on so that I can live from day to day. And that's exactly what I did, right? That's exactly what I did. Everywhere I looked, from the moment that I got up, like when I was at home and when I had free time, just, wandering around, I didn't want to think about that stuff. Did I have moments? I sure did. It was moments where I would be in the middle of making dinner and I'd have to go to my closet and have a breakdown, an emotional breakdown, because I didn't want my children to see me in that state. I think they were like maybe 3 and 4. I didn't want them to see me like that. And then I get myself together after having that mental breakdown and come on out the closet, go back in there after I finished praying and doing what I was doing and finish making dinner and finish being what I needed to be at that time. But to get me through that, I was like, I cannot give in to this. I have to keep going. And so I had to put up little stickies around my room reminding me of who I am, of what I needed to focus on, which is not the situation, but I needed to focus forward, what I was being called to. I'm getting excited, y'all. And when I think of them times, it was like, I made it over. I really did. I'm so glad that I didn't give up and give in to the pressure and to the defeat. It's all starting right here. And so whatever you need to do, set that thing up so that you remind yourself to keep your eyes and your focus where it is that you're wanting to go. Okay. The fourth thing is permission to grieve. This is huge too. What have I not allowed myself to feel? What are we afraid to feel or admit? What are we afraid, to be seen as? Like, are we afraid of rejection? Are we afraid to fail? Are we afraid to be seen in a way that is not aligning with other people's expectations of us? Like, what are we afraid of? What is the fear that keeps us hostage and not allowing us to really come to the forefront and receive the healing and to reclaim the power back over our lives? What is that thing? And when we talk about grief, so many times we automatically go to, oh, well, somebody passed, and allow yourself to grieve. It's not just when people exit our lives and go on to the next part of their journey. Grieving can also be about leaving behind that old person that we used to be. Okay, that's grieving too. And so many times, because we don't see that, we don't realize that we can be trying to deny ourselves a process that is very important for our well-being and for our moving forward, to the next part of our journey. When we make huge transitions in life, now that I'm seeing things in this way, like so many things become so clear to me. And it is clear that we could be so on one path in one part of our lives and then find ourselves in a whole different place, a whole different zone in another part of our lives. It's part of the evolving and the opening and the developing to what we've been called here to experience. And sometimes it is very different. Sometimes it is difficult making those transitions. I just made a huge move not a few months ago, not too long ago. And it was a huge, huge shift. As you can see, I'm in a different space. And it's a far ways away from where my old home was. Huge transition. I didn't even realize that it was going to be as difficult as it has been. It's been difficult. However, it's okay because I've allowed myself to process it and to be honest about it and to grieve the old place, to grieve the old environment, right? To grieve the old me that was in that old place. There was a process of letting that go so that I can welcome the new experience that I have stepped into. Things like that can actually turn into things that need to be healed when we don't recognize it. That's why it's important too to allow yourself to receive help when you need to, because sometimes we don't see things that's so obvious, maybe to other people. And so it becomes beneficial to invite someone else in that can see from a different perspective because you're in it. Many times we can't see that, what we're in because we're in it. We're so involved in it and close to it. We don't really see what's needed. That's why it's important to be open for different avenues of assistance, counseling. It could even just be a place where you can go and be open and vent and, have discussions about things and allow people to speak to your situation too. Because sometimes, again, they can see things that we don't. And so that's just an example. It doesn't always have to be grieving over somebody's death. We grieve about things that we don't even realize we're grieving about. Changing a job that you've been on for 15 years. Sometimes that does need and will, in fact, involve a grieving process. When people retire, a lot of times we think that this is a very beautiful experience. I have not found that to be so. The people that retire, in my experience, when I talk to them, they many times end up going back to work because they're bored or they miss the socialization. Sometimes it's not as easy as they said it would be. And so that's grieving, and when we end up going back, it's like, it's a choice that we make according to what, we feel is good for us. But it just goes to show how much we need to pay attention to areas that cause a bit of grief in our life that deserves our attention, right? What are other examples? Grieving our old selves, grieving situations, allowing ourselves to grieve, things that happened that we had no control over, that we have no control over, not blaming ourselves for those, but allowing ourselves to release it, And so this is the type of stuff that we're talking about, giving ourselves permission to not be okay. Because not every day is going to be Sunday. And not every day is going to be a beautiful, warm, fuzzy day. Things are going to happen. No matter how good you are to people, no matter how good you are to yourself, things are going to happen. And we have to allow ourselves the permission to grieve when necessary. As you move through the sacred process of becoming aware, you will begin to notice the subtle, sometimes not so subtle, patterns that govern your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, your choices. This is the work of self-awareness, which is the first pillar of this journey. Awareness is not about self-blame. Again, this is not about pointing out the bad things within us or pointing out the bad things of others. This is about sacred noticing. It's about being aware. You cannot cleanse what you do not see. You cannot heal what you are not yet willing to feel. But awareness alone is not enough. We'll also be called to gently and compassionately be honest about it. And what are we being called to be honest about? Okay. The first thing is to be honest with ourselves about what we think and why we think it. Okay. What it is that we're thinking, why we're thinking it. The second one, to be honest about what you're holding that doesn't belong to you. What it is that we're holding that doesn't belong to us. That is the most freeing thing that I have found so far, releasing what don't belong to me. You mean I ain't have to carry that? You didn't. Oof. Immediately you start rising. Because you was carrying that. You weren't even supposed to be carrying that. The third thing is honest about how you're really doing beneath the roles and the routines. Be honest about how you're really doing underneath all of the riffraff, all of the movement and the activity. How are you really doing? Be honest about it. Or do you even know? Do you slow down enough to take notice? And lastly, honest about what's no longer sustainable, even if it used to work. What no longer is sustainable, you can no longer afford to continue on this path. It did work at one point in time, but sometimes we come to the honesty like, this ain't working no more. Or we look back and see how it never worked. We got to try something else. I can no longer afford to invest in what didn't work, what's not working. You mean to tell me I've been doing that for 10, 15 years and I'm still in the same emotional mess? I'm still in the same dysregulated pattern. Okay, we got to change something here. Be honest. And no matter how deep that goes, let me add that. No matter how deep that goes, be honest about what needs to happen for you. Okay, this is about you. This is the second pillar, self-honesty, the courageous tool that clears the fog from the mind and the clutter from the heart. Without honesty, that first pillar, awareness, cannot find its foundation in reality. Honesty is the clearing blade and the sacred broom. It sweeps away the false narratives, the outdated masks, and the emotional debris. As the mental fog lifts and the emotional clutter is removed, something extraordinary begins to happen. Our energy expands. This expansion is not just a feeling, it is a shift in frequency, an opening of your inner space. With this expansion comes energetic responsibility, which is the third pillar. No longer ruled by emotional reactivity and unconscious cycles or unconscious thought patterns, we'll begin to choose what stays and what goes. We begin to choose different. You become the gatekeeper of your internal world. I love that. Ooh. You become the gatekeeper of your internal world. When you become aware and honest, you no longer have time to play games. Listen, because you begin to understand how valuable your energy is and your time is. Snip, snip, we pull out them scissors. With this newfound space, this breath of clarity, comes the deepest invitation of level 1, which is that last pillar, permission to grieve. This is the fourth and often the most tender pillar. Once you see and tell the truth, you must give yourself permission to feel the impact of what you've been carrying, what you've been suppressing, what you've been ignoring. You grieve not to fall apart or to, allow yourself to look just out of, control, just a mess, right? Or unstable. That's not why you grieve. You grieve to come back together, to come back to yourself, to make space for things like joy, for things like clarity and peace. In other words, clean living is what Iyanla calls it. We grieve to make space for clean living. which means we are free from the past and open to the present, prepared and preparing for what we now choose to create and experience. I love that. And you are doing this with a clean slate. In this way, that fourth pillar, or not the fourth pillar, but those four pillars are not linear. They're living spirals of sacred rhythm, right? They're intertwinable. Like you could experience these, not necessarily in that order. It could be in any order, but these are definitely aspects that Iyanla has found to be necessary. And she has put these processes in the form of something we can understand. She's named them. Awareness opens our eyes. Honesty clears our lenses. Energetic responsibility stabilizes our field, and grief purifies our heart. With each turn of this spiral, our inner light returns. Our clarity sharpens. Our patterns reveal their value and their teachings. So that is finally our soul can breathe. This is the foundation of what we're talking about, spiritual hygiene, to clear what clutters our sacred inner space so that we can live, so that we can lead, and so that we can love from truth. These four pillars are also principles and tools for reflection. So we can consider them to be living gateways that will support us in naming, feeling, and clearing what has clouded our mind and polluted our emotional field. Many times we'll be asked during this process to name our fog, to identify our patterns, and to allow ourselves to know and feel the truth about what is and what has been going on with us. The information is essential for our preparation to enter into the next level, level 2, the cleansing stage. I don't know why I'm thinking of Don Ruiz. I don't know if any of you have read The Four Agreements. I don't know why that's coming up here. That might be a book that you also might enjoy. It talks about principles. I feel like these also are talking about the kind of the same thing. I think everybody, when we look at these thought leaders or teachers, like we may describe it different. Maybe we've experienced it different, but we're really talking about the same things. Okay. Just in a different way. If you've read that book, then you already know. And this is probably aligning or you're understanding what we're saying here. And so these four pillars, when we talk about healing, they're necessary when we talk about spiritual hygiene as we move through this process of understanding what that means. And this is so amazing. I'm so enjoying this, you guys, because this has been a question for me on this new part of my journey. I'm like, what is that? I kept hearing, Spirit say to me, spiritual hygiene is necessary. Spiritual hygiene, to get your spiritual hygiene together. What does that mean? And I kept asking, but getting different answers, which was helpful too, but to have it broken down in layman's terms in a way, not only that I can understand, but that I can actually apply and help me to direct my path in a way where I can make this something that's graspable for me to experience. Yeah. And so this is so good. I'm enjoying this. This is really good. She then goes into a prayer or a meditation, I'm going to call it as well. But before going there, maybe this has brought up things for you. I always try to use real life examples that I have experienced just to keep it real. I think many times we experience things to be able to be positioned to help others come along. Maybe they're going through something we've been through. Maybe we have a tip to help them ease their way through. We did the brunt of the work and we can help someone else bypass or understand their experience a little bit better. But maybe this brought up things for you to think about. especially as it pertains to being aware. I did a couple of videos back too, about emotional intelligence. Being aware was part of that too. And so we're talking about a lot of the same things. I think right now, at this point in our existence for humanity, awareness is big. Awareness is big. We're having a national crisis right now. I'm not sure if we even know who we are as a nation. I'm not sure. I think right now that is changing. We're being rebranded. I think a lot of systems are falling and are shifting out of the spotlight. I think other systems are coming into play. All of that is happening right before our eyes. And just because we can't necessarily see it with our eyes, awareness tells us that this shift is happening. And along with that collective shift, we are also shifting. We have no choice but to shift with it. And if you're not shifting with it, you still need to be aware of it, right? And so awareness is big. Awareness is big. Being honest is huge too. Energetic integrity is huge. Taking responsibility for where we are and what it is, and then allowing ourselves the process to the space to process those things, especially if they cause grief, something that might need to be healed, right? Allowing ourselves the space to process that is really huge. And so what did that bring up for you? I know I always give my own examples, but what does that bring up for you? I know this book for Iyanla has been pitted around her really getting honest with herself. And I've heard her speak in terms of some of her deepest healing experiences, like around losing her children and watching them slip away and not being able to really have any say so about that. Like some really difficult things. I think that's why I really enjoy connecting with her, is because her stories are realistic and honest and raw. And she takes accountability in her stories about some of her mental processes as she was going through. Like, she is super honest, and I appreciate that. And so I think this really is a beautiful work that has come from some deep places. And one of the pieces of inspiration she gives is how some of the deepest revelations will come through our most painful experiences. And I think this is one of those things, a deep revelation that has been born, out of her healing processes. And it's beautiful. And sometimes we are made to go through to offer up works like this that will be helpful to others. And when I tell you this is like right on time, I can't express how much I mean when I say that. Like, I feel like many times I have such a connection with spirit that spirit will always deliver what I need. And when I think of that, I also think in terms of me also being open and being available to listen to the voice of spirit when we're being directed to do things, because there's always somebody on the other side of that is receiving what you're being guided to do. It's just powerful. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and end with this meditation. She calls it an opening prayer. And she says, "Beloved, presence of all that is, anchor me now in your peace and perfect wisdom. Today I call forth the sacred flame of courage, not the absence of fear, but the holy willingness to move forward anyway. Let courage rise in me like the morning sun, warming every place within me that feels uncertain or afraid. Divine light of truth, I ask that you clear my mind, wash away the fog of confusion, the heaviness of doubt, and the noise of every voice that does not belong to me. Make my thoughts clear and focused and honorable. Help me to see with spiritual eyes so that I will choose with sacred discernment. Guide me to speak only what is rooted in integrity and love. I open my hands and my heart now, ready to receive divine instruction so that I will walk in alignment towards my greater good. Guide me, strengthen me, clarify everything I hold in my mind. May may every step I take today be a step toward truth and peace and my own divinity. I ask, I allow, I accept. Amen. Asheo, and so it is. While I was reading that, Spirit was talking to me about honoring people, not waiting till they die to give them their flowers, but we ought to honor those among us who labor on our behalf. For me, this is a labor, because as I sit here in this space where I am energetically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, there's a deep need for guidance and instruction in this area. And here is someone who has been guided and led by Spirit to provide this body of work. Though it's simple, it's yet still fulfilling a need. Spirit is saying that we ought to honor those before us who labor on our behalf, who labor, to give them their flowers while they yet live. Don't wait till they are 10 feet under and then appreciate them and talk about how great they were. We don't have to wait. We can give them their flowers right now. And so I honor the work. I honor the submission to Spirit, to the need of something like this as helping people. And I know this is going to be helpful for a lot of people, not just me, and not just the people that might, come by and watch and read along. But this is like, and to know that she's like a #1 New York best time selling author. This is a national work that's out there and available. And so I honor you, for the work that you do for us. In the Spirit, I send, love, support. I send gratitude out. And I also, if I'm able, want to manifest an opportunity to be able to support, if that is in alignment with what I'm called to do. But yeah, Spirit says, honor those who are among us. Don't wait till they're 10 feet under to acknowledge them. And not everybody is going to have a large platform like Iyanla, right? Not everybody is going to write books. We have elders that you can go and talk to that has, so much wisdom, right? But honor them while you have them. Even your own parents hold a wealth of wisdom that they are just waiting to share with you if you are open to receive it. Honor them. Spirit is saying that right now here today. Honor them. Okay? Don't wait until they're gone to give them their flowers. That's the ending message that Spirit is saying. And so thank you so much, Iyanla. I appreciate you, Ms. Vanzant. And that was what we were talking about today. The 4 major pillars of this beginning work called healing, right? We talked about what healing is. And that was such a beautiful definition. I have to go back and reread it. He said, healing means remembering what was forgotten, restoring what was lost, and realigning what was distorted within the sanctuary of your own being. It is a return to wholeness in which your mind, heart, and soul express naturally and freely through your physical body. True healing is not the act of erasing wounds or pretending that your pain does not exist. Healing in this context is the holy work of becoming aware of what you carry, honoring its impact, and releasing what no longer serves your divine unfolding. It is the clearing of energetic residue from inherited pain, from internalized shame, and from emotional clutter. It is learning to hear your own soul again through the noise of anger, guilt, and shame. It is releasing the masks you wear and the roles you have played and the defenses you have engaged to keep yourself safe. Healing is not arriving anywhere. It is a rhythm you live within, a sacred return to mental and emotional clarity, to your authentic presence, and to the truth of your own soul. Healing is the soil in which spiritual hygiene begins. That's what we're talking about today. It starts with healing, spiritual hygiene. I hope you enjoyed this. You got your books, you got questions, you want to open up for conversation. What stood out to you about this particular chapter, and what resonated with your own personal experience? If you want to share that, I invite you to do so. You can share that in the comments. We are going to be respectful to everybody's comments. You can share it if you want to open up a personal dialogue with me in my email. I would appreciate and enjoy that as well. And so this was what I wanted to share today through the reading. The next section is we're going into chapter 1. That was like the beginning introduction. She wanted to make plain. I love how she just takes time to break down every concept. That's what she did. She broke down what healing means, and she went into detail and even broke it down even further. Awareness, honesty, energetic integrity, and the openness of grieving. That's what it means to heal. Powerful, powerful. And now we go into the first chapter, the throne of thought, right? We're talking about awareness. She's going to go in even deeper and explain the importance of these concepts, okay? And so we're not in a rush. We're going to take time and break down every little morsel, every little piece, because I think it's all important. And if there's any questions that arise, please shoot them to me, because there could be some things about this that I'm not seeing. I'm learning too, as I'm reading the book with you and discussing it. And so I would like for this to be an open, interactive activity, if those of you who are listening are interested. And so, yeah, we'll come back next week for another chapter. Chapter 1, the throne of thoughts, right? We talked about that. How much power our thoughts have. That's why she said it's a throne, because it is so much power that lies there that we have to really look and see what that is. We see it, we know what it is, but to understand it, to break it down, and to see how that happens, how this actually usurps the power over our life, I think is really important to understand. Okay. And so that's what we'll be discussing next week, the throne of thought. I'm so excited. I really do spend the week really just delving into the chapters. I'll go through and I'll read it and digest it and delve into it. What I do like about this book as well, I know she uses a lot of spiritual terms. But if you have the book, you'll notice in the back of the book, she has a glossary of terms that she used throughout this book. We should probably go through the glossary too, huh? Because a lot of these terms are spiritual terms, or terms that are used when we talk about things like spiritual hygiene or healing, or other things that are described as important to understanding what spiritual hygiene is. She breaks them down. There's definitions for things like acceptance, accountability, acknowledgement, affirmation, alignment, altar, shadow, sovereignty. That was one that we mentioned in this chapter, sovereignty. What does that mean? She says the divine state of self-governance, ruling one's energy, choices, and life from the throne of spiritual alignment. When we look at sovereignty in terms of, say, our work life, we look at people who actually own their own business, right? They set their own schedule. They are their managers. They're their employees. They're their own bookkeeper. They're their own scheduler. Like, there's a sense of sovereignty in the overall operation of their business. Now, when we put that in terms of spirituality, it's talking about being sovereign in terms of not having to have someone dictate or feed to you your operations around your existence or your divine state of being, right? Having a sense of self-governance, right? Not necessarily having anybody to tell you when it's time to fast or when it's time for you to go and meditate or pray, but having a sense of self-governance around that and the importance of knowing what that is, having the discipline to rule oneself and your energy and your choices. Okay, sovereignty. There's an invocation that she gives for each of these definitions in the glossary for sovereignty. The invocation says, ancient sovereign, awaken my holy dominion. May I take my seat at the throne within. Let me lead my life from wisdom, courage, and truth. This might be like something that is of controversy, I do feel like, in today's time, as things are shifting. And I think we are shifting into what is going to end up being something a little bit more in a sovereign state of being for everyone individually. Because right now we sit in a place where we wait for people to tell us what to do. We wait for the government to tell us what we can and cannot do. We wait for, if you are governed by certain theological institutions, or we could call them religions or whatever, sometimes there is the need to be led or governed in that sense. But there is a way for us to really acknowledge and awaken our holy dominion, and that's what we're talking about here. When we talk about healing and we talk about spiritual hygiene, whatever that is, right? Whatever your source is, we're talking about the spiritual hygiene around how that interacts with our everyday life, things that are real and practical, dealing with those things. That's just an example, but there's a glossary of all of these special, meaningful words: patience, ownership, peace, performance, inner authority, mind. She has these clarified in a glossary in the back. I thought that was just a bonus. And so, yeah, let me know about this particular introduction to chapter 1, the throne of thought, and we will head into that chapter next. All right. I hope you're enjoying this. My name is Leticia, and this channel is Blood Moon Oracle, all about healing, all about expansion and moving forward, all about sovereignty, right? That's a good word. I like that word a lot. I do. And so I hope you're enjoying this. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you feel led. Comment, email me. My email's down in the description. Just let me know. Okay. And I look forward to our next reading next Sunday. All right. And I hope you have a beautiful week. Take this with you and chew on it. See how it resonates. See what type of things come up as we delve into these different aspects and pillars of each of these levels that we'll jump into. We're talking about healing right now. How is that resonating with you? We'll talk to you next time. Bye.